Hello and welcome to the Housing Minute. My name is Samuel Gunter. I'm the Executive Director of the North Carolina Housing Coalition. And today there's only one thing to talk about, and that is the memo that was released Monday evening by OMB that attempted to put a temporary freeze on agency grant, loan, and other individual assistance programs. This has been, the last 48 hours have been chaotic. Initially trying to figure out, what is this? What's the scope of this? Is this real? Do they have the authority to do this? And then spending a lot of the day on calls with Congress people and their staff, with reporters, pushing back against this, what would be a catastrophic freeze in resources that flow to families and to communities across the state. I had some clarity earlier today. This is the 6th version of this video that I've recorded at this point as new information has come to light. A lot of that clarity has gone out the window with the events of the last several minutes. So I'm gonna provide what little clarity that I can on the state of play, and then say a word about, so now what? But first, let me say thank you to all of you who responded to our action alert yesterday, and like me, spent a lot of your day on the phone with our congressional delegation, pushing back against this. We're gonna need more of that. First, if you are confused or unsure whether or not the resources that you use are wrapped up in the scope of this, we have linked to a spreadsheet that is 51 pages long of all the federal programs that are part of the scope of this freeze. I'll give you the Cliff Notes version. If you do housing work, your stuff is in there. Home, CDBG, housing choice vouchers, disaster recovery, ESG money, weatherization money. Do you do any USDA rural development? All that stuff is in there. Do you use AmeriCorps members in your work? Corporation for National Community Service is a part of it. Housing counseling money. All that stuff is in there. It's large in its scope. So if you need clarity about whether or not this means you, it probably does. The second is the quick version of events was the memo came out Monday evening. All the portals shut down, so no one could access resources, even though it wasn't supposed to go effect until 5 p.m. yesterday. Before that could happen, a judge put a temporary block on it, pending the courts deciding whether or not the president has the authority to do this in the first place. Because remember, this is already appropriated funds, appropriated by Congress, by law. So that was the state of play this morning. And then earlier this afternoon, OMB issued another memo essentially saying we're rescinding the previous memo. And so a lot of us took a collective breath and said, all right, back to our corner, back to status quo. Now let's figure out what's going on. And then just minutes ago, the White House press secretary released a tweet that said, nope, it's just the memo that was rescinded. Freeze is still on, and we just rescinded the memo to get around the court case. So what that means for us, from an immediate term, I run a housing program, am I gonna make payroll? Honestly, I do not know. The portals are back up and running. But I don't know if money is gonna flow or not. And honestly, I don't think anyone knows at this moment. There is not a lot of clarity. It has been a catastrophic and chaotic last 48 hours. And it's been really frustrating. And I'm sure you are incredibly frustrated as well. So I want to encourage you to do two things after you answer this question. And that question is, are your communities, is the work that you do, is it worth fighting for? And be honest with yourself. Because if it is, if the answer to that question is yes, we got to get a little bit louder, y'all. The pushback was immediate and fierce to this. You were a large part of that. But we just saw whether or not this freeze is still on, whether it's this is a prelude to a budget fight in the upcoming Congress. And they just listed all the programs that are suspect, and it's essentially all the housing programs. And so if we are serious about the work that we do, and if we think that the work that we do matters and the communities that we fight for are worth it, we've got to get louder with our delegation about how transformative these investments can be when they are unleashed, and how catastrophic it would be to cut them off. So I want to encourage you to do two things. One, we have the action alert still live. Like I said, there's no clarity. And so I would encourage you to still call Senator Tillis, call Senator Budd, and call your congressperson and the congresspeople if you do work in multiple districts, of all the districts that are represented by the work that you or your organization does, and reiterate again and again just how catastrophic it would be to cut these off. And not just you, your board members, your staff, your organizational partners, your partner families, your clients, your whatever relationships you have. It's got to be more than just the executive director of the Habitat affiliate, or the developer, or the head of the emergency shelter. It's got to be a bigger community effort. So I would encourage you to take a look at that action alert and reach out to your member of Congress and let them know how absolutely unacceptable this is. And then spend some time talking about the transformative nature of your work. So that's one thing. But that's all happening at Congress. The other thing that's happening this year is we've got a long legislative session here in North Carolina. We're passing a 2-year budget. And if you have not already, I want you to mark April 8th and 9th on your calendars. We're going to be down in Raleigh with housing professionals from across the state, talking to elected officials at the state level about how important these investments are to ensuring that every North Carolinian has a home in which to live with dignity and opportunity. April 8th and 9th. If you haven't seen the save the dates, there should be registrations going out as well, RSVPs going out as well for that, so we know how many folks to expect walking around the halls of the General Assembly. If your work matters, if your communities are worth fighting for, you gotta get louder. Find ways to plug in. And if you can't think of any, reach out to us. We want to try and find a way to connect you so that we make sure that we have the resources that we need to make transformative investments for families and communities across our state. We got a long road ahead of us, y'all. There is a lot of work to do. But let me tell you, I'm honored to be in the work with you. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.